Our scripture this morning comes from Ecclesiastes 4, verses 9 through 12 from the New Revised Standard Version. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up the other. But woe to one who is alone and falls and does not have another to help. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though one might prevail against another, two will withstand one. A threefold cord is not quickly broken.
So, a couple weeks ago, Rob called me and said, "Hey, do you want to speak on Father's Day?" And this was the day before I was supposed to leave on vacation. And I said, "Sure." So, when we were talking about, was this a great idea to have Rob and Allie and Tim all gone on one Sunday? I don't know, but you know what? Isn't it a beautiful thing that our pastoral staff can participate in our mission trip this week and experience that with some of our other folks here at church? And so I hope you'll be praying for them this week and for the impact that they will have there and the impact, hopefully, that they will experience themselves as well. This was not planned. I did know about the setup here before I left on vacation, but we are going to talk about cotton candy this morning. Now, I tried to find cotton candy, big, fluffy cotton candy, but it's not in season, I'm told, at Walmart. And so the only place I could find it was at Dollar General, and so it's not big and fluffy. It's more can-shaped and condensed, but we're going to use our imagination this morning. But cotton candy, right? Look at it. It's bright. It's beautiful. You take a bite of it, you put it on your mouth, and what does it do? It melts. It disappears in all its sweetness. It doesn't have a whole lot of substance. It's a treat, but it can't fill you up. It looks like something you could lean on, but if you were to try to, there's just air. It was never meant to carry weight. I want to talk today about a kind of community that looks sweet on the surface. Warm smiles, friendly faces, the occasional coffee or cookie after church, but when life gets hard, it just can't hold. Author Shane Hipps calls this cotton candy community. We all know what it feels like to be surrounded by people and still feel alone. To scroll through smiling photos and DMs and reactions on our phones, but still feel like nobody actually knows us. And the painful truth, sometimes the loneliest places are the ones that are supposed to be the most connected. Schools, offices, small groups, and yes, church. This sermon that I'm doing this morning isn't me preaching at you. I'm in this too. I don't have this all figured out. I've been in cotton candy communities. I've created cotton candy friendships. But I've also had a taste of the real thing, the sturdy, soul-deep friendship that actually holds when life fails. So today I want to talk about how we can go from one to the other, from fake connection to real community, from melting sugar to something that actually binds us together. Now, the Ecclesiastes passage that we read this morning, you often hear that at weddings. But it isn't just a marriage verse. It's a vision for all relationships. It's God's blueprint for how we're supposed to do life. Not solo, not shallow, but deeply intertwined. From Genesis to Revelation, Scripture assumes that we are communal beings, made in the image of a relational God. The first not good in the Bible isn't sin, it's loneliness. God says it is not good for man to be alone. This is what it's supposed to look like. Messy, twisted, strong, interwoven. Not smooth, not perfect, not neat, but unbreakable. But most of us, and myself included, aren't walking around with rope relationships. We're holding on to cotton candy. Let's talk honestly. Cotton candy community happens when we say, hey, let's grab a coffee sometime, but we never do. We keep things light so no one sees our mess. We smile and nod, but never share stuff that is really breaking our heart. We avoid following up because it might be awkward, and we ghost people when we're overwhelmed. Author Mel Robbins talks about this moment when she realized that she didn't have any friends, not real ones. And she said the hardest part wasn't the loneliness, it was the shame. Shame that as an adult that you're supposed to have it all together, that needing friends makes you needy, that if no one's reaching out, it must be your fault. Brene Brown calls the armor we wear humor, perfectionism, and busyness. Anything to avoid the terrifying act of being vulnerable. But here's the truth. Community without vulnerability isn't community. It's performance. And it's exhausting. Want to know what vulnerability looks like? It's in this moment right here. Me standing in front of you and saying, I get lonely. I get scared. I wonder if people like me for who I am or for just the version that I present. It's hard to say I need people, but I do, and we all do. Jesus did. Think about that. The Son of God surrounded himself with 12 close friends. Did they mess up? Constantly. Did they let him down? Totally. Think about the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus is praying. He's sweating drops of blood. He says, his heart is broken to the point of dying, and he asks his friends to come pray with him. And what do? They fall asleep. But he chose to walk with them, eat with them, pray with them, love them. So even Jesus didn't go solo. He chose community, knowing it would hurt, knowing it would be messy, and that says something. There's some other great examples in Scripture of strong rope-corded friendships. Think of David and Jonathan. This wasn't a political alliance. These two loved each other deeply. Jonathan literally gave up his chance at the throne to protect David. That's covenant friendship. That's rope. Ruth and Naomi. Ruth could have gone back to her own people and started over. But instead she said, where you go, I'll go. Your people will be my people. Even though Naomi was bitter and broken. That's rope. Paul and Timothy. Paul calls Timothy his beloved child. He mentors him. He writes to him from prison. This is spiritual friendship. Mentorship rooted in love and not obligation. Each of these friendships required risk, commitment, and showing up when it wasn't easy to do. Church should be the place to find real community, but sometimes it's not. We've created environments where people show up, smile, sing, and leave without ever being known. It's not anyone's fault, it's just easier that way. But easier isn't better. We're literally starving for connection. Former Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, in his book Together, has written that loneliness is a public health crisis. Not just a feeling, but a danger. He defines loneliness as the distress we feel when we lack the social connection our brain needs. This means you can be in a crowd and still feel deeply alone. And statistically, many of us are. Men are especially vulnerable. Pew Research found that over 60% of men report feeling lonely regularly. And actually, if you read the report, there's not a huge statistical difference between loneliness in men and women. The difference is in how men handle it. Men don't seek out emotional support. And the biggest telling thing is that the suicide rate among men is 4 times that of women. And the most lonely, I thought this was interesting too, the most lonely age group is Gen Z and under. You know, the group that grew up with social media. We've become a society full of independence but starving for interdependence. And I'll be honest, I'm not immune. I've had seasons of my life where I've looked around and thought, who really knows me? Who could I call in an emergency? Who would show up? We weren't made to live like this. I used to think that making friends was just something you do naturally, right? I mean, Simon Sinek points out that no one ever really teaches us how to build deep friendships. We go to conferences to learn how to be better leaders, how to do our jobs better, how to do business better, but nobody teaches us how to be a friend. When we were kids, we would ask our parents, how do I make a friend? They'd say things like, just be nice, or go up and say hi, join a club. If you want a friend, just be friendly. That's like saying, you want to learn the guitar? Just pluck a few strings. Technically true, but not helpful. I've felt this gap personally. I've moved cities and started over more than once. And each time I assumed connection would just happen. But it didn't. And I had to learn how to show up, reach out, risk awkwardness. And I'll be honest, I still don't know how to do it. The truth is, we're in a friendship recession, especially because of something sociologists call the disappearance of third places. First place is home, second place is school or work, but third places, that's where community historically has happened. That's where relationships are formed without the pressure of performance. Places like the barber shop, the coffee shop, the front porch, the community center, the church basement. But these places are disappearing. And today's an anomaly because it's Father's Day, but normally if you look around, who's sitting here? Who's missing? The young people, people who are the loneliest. Most people work remotely. Fewer attend neighborhood events. Often we go from the driveway or from the garage to the driveway to the house and we close the door. We order our groceries online now. We eat in front of our TVs. Even public spaces have become more isolating because everyone has earbuds in, everyone's looking at a screen. And tragically, church attendance has declined. Not just in number, but, as Bob Collins' favorite word, in participation, in vulnerability, in presence. Fewer people see church as a third place, not just because it can't be, but because we've forgotten what it could be, what it's meant to be. The church is supposed to be the one place where you're seen for who you are and loved anyway. A place where we can confess and be forgiven, we can cry and someone holds our hand, where we show up in sweatpants or our Sunday best and nobody judges either way. A place where you don't just pass the peace, you live it. But too often, church has been reduced to a performance, a drive-by. That's not what Jesus called us to. Comedian Jimmy Carr once asked a therapist what people talk about in therapy. And the therapist said, almost everyone walks in the door and has the same unspoken question. If you knew everything about me, would you still love me? That question hits me hard. As I mentioned before, I've asked it, maybe not out loud, but certainly in those quiet moments, I've wondered, if I let someone in, will they stick around? Real friendship, the kind Ecclesiastes talks about, requires us to be seen. Not just curated versions of ourselves on a screen, but the real us. And that's terrifying. But it's the only way we can truly be known. Vulnerability is the path to connection. Not the obstacle, not the danger, but the path. But we treat it like it's radioactive. We hide our loneliness because we think it makes us feel weak or unlovable. So we keep it quiet. We scroll, we like posts, we smile politely at church. We even tell ourselves that we're doing okay. All the while we're hoping someone else will make the first move, reach out, ask us to coffee, sit down next to us long enough to see what's really going on in our life. I wonder if that's what the writer of Ecclesiastes is talking about. Not just the convenience of having a friend, but the cost of not having one. Pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them out. Because here's the thing, so many of us have fallen. Maybe not physically, but spiritually, mentally, financially, emotionally. We've stumbled into depression, into grief, into isolation, and we've looked around for someone to help, only to find that people we thought we could count on aren't really there or don't know how to be. This is what we're after. Something with weight, something that holds. And if cotton candy represents a hollow connection, this rope, 3 strands woven together, represents a covenantal relationship. One built over time through shared presence, trust, and choice. It's me, it's you, it's Christ. Friendship that includes God at the center becomes sacred. It goes beyond emotional support. It becomes spiritual resilience. And not just for crisis moments, but for everyday life. This is what the church can be. Not a cotton candy community, but a covenant community. Not something we consume, but something we build. Not a place to visit, but where we belong. And maybe the most vulnerable thing I can say to you today is, I need this. I need you. I don't just want Sunday smiles. I want Tuesday check-ins. I want friends who ask the second question. I want people who show up when I'm okay and don't need me to explain everything. And you do too. We all do. A couple years ago, I turned 50, and I was at a conference for work in Vegas, a place known for bright lights, a lot of sugar, loud. It's not my scene. I'm a person that wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so with the time change, I was up early. And I was listening to a podcast by Jimmy Carr, and he asked a question. He said, what could you do today that at the end of the day you would look back on and be happy that you did it? And I thought about that, and I kind of extrapolated it for myself because I just turned 50, and I thought, what could I start doing today that in 10 years' time, when I'm 60, I will look back on and say, that is a gift to myself. I'm glad I did that. So I thought about it as I was looking out over the bright lights of Vegas, and I wrote several things down, but the thing that kept coming to the top was building relationships. Not being rich in relationships. Not just like a lot of people have the goal of being rich financially, but I want to be rich relationally. So how do we build this? I'm still learning, but here are 4 practices I'm trying to lean into. First one, show up. Put down the phone, make eye contact. Sit with someone in their joy, their grief, their in-between. Half the battle is just being there. Psychologist Angela Duckworth calls our cell phones adult pacifiers. We reach for them when we're bored, anxious, or lonely, but instead of comforting us, they keep us from real connection. Every time we stare at the screen, we're not looking at what's around us or what's in front of us. We've all been out to eat, right, at the restaurant where there's the couple that presumably is on a date and they're both doing this, right? How is that connection? Sometimes friendship means more than messaging someone or commenting on a post. Sometimes it means you actually have to show up, awkward, fear, and all. So a couple weeks before Rob asked me to speak, I got a message on Facebook from somebody that I knew from way back when I was like first, second, third grade. I don't have 600 friends on Facebook. I probably have 10. I mostly use it to follow the art scene in Fort Wayne. So this was a surprise. And he wanted to know if I remembered him. I said, yeah, Mike, I remember you. You lived right around the corner from me. And so we exchanged a few texts, and I said, hey, if I'm ever in New York, that's where I grew up, I didn't grow up here, if I'm ever back in New York, maybe we can hang out together. And as the week went on, I remembered that 2 or 3 years earlier, I think it was somewhere in 2020, in the COVID year, I'd gone to visit my family for Thanksgiving, and I had connected with another friend from when I was in 4th grade in high school named Siri, and we had went for coffee and had a great time, but totally forgot about it. It was a one-time thing, never followed up, never talked to him again. And so I was actually going to New York for vacation with my family, with my younger sister, my parents, my older son, and our dog. And so I thought, I'm going to be an hour away. Maybe I can show up. And so I texted Siri and I said, hey, I'm going to be in New York. If you want to get together, let me know. Didn't think anything of it. Didn't think I'd get a response. And he texted back and said, great. And so I said, well, I ran into Mike. So Mike was in Siri and I's 4th grade class as well. I said, I ran into Mike, would you mind if he joined us? Sure. So again, I start getting all these texts on my phone. Now, because I don't have these other people I don't know who they are. So there's this whole text thread going, and Siri invited some other guys who were in our 4th grade class, some other guys that were part of our high school, and before you know it, it was a barbecue. And so I show up, and again, you could tell a man organized this event because it was really just Siri, grilling hamburgers, hot dogs, and Italian sausage. There were no sides. They have 3 girls in high school. All of them play sports. Their house was a mess, and I'm not saying that in a judging way. I'm just saying he didn't care. Hadn't met his wife. God bless her. All these strange guys coming into her house. But a bunch of guys showed up. We sat at a table, and we reconnected. They even brought photographs of our 4th grade class. Most of the people I didn't remember or recognize. We talked about our teacher, Mr. Hillman, and how cool he was. I reconnected with Mike. I found out that he had left home when he was 15 with all his stuff in a bag and went to a friend's house because his family life was so terrible. And for the last 26 years, he's been working with kids who get suspended and come from broken homes. I thought, how beautiful. We had another friend who lived up the hill from us named Randy. I knew that he lived in Panama, hadn't talked to him in a while. We used Facebook to call him while we were there. And so we were at the table, all of us guys talked to him. His father had recently passed away. We were able to offer him some words of comfort. We went outside, we played volleyball, and then we came back inside. And we were talking some more. You just tell, nobody wanted to leave. Nobody wanted to leave. Something was happening. I was scared to show up. All these old narratives started playing in my head. What do they remember about me? How will they remember me? Will they see me as the overly religious kid who was zealous but not kind? But you know what? None of that came up. None of that. As a matter of fact, Randy, the guy in Panama, said to me, hey, you know what? I've always appreciated how strong your faith was. And I know something happened because of the text that came out afterwards. I'm going to read you one of them. Sorry, my phone's locked. Siri. We talked about that too, that his name is Siri. You should really be commended for all your effort and time in putting yesterday together. Your willingness to go above and beyond in gathering old friends, bringing back old memories, some lost but now found, made such a difference in our lives. And I'm sure that I speak for everyone when I say that we are all so lucky to have you as a friend and that we are deeply grateful for everything that you did and everything that you continue to do. And he responded, thanks, bro. I'm going to cry. All this because one person showed up, and then another, and another. If I had, I could have just texted him through Facebook, found out some things. It's not the same. Like, I got some really good man hugs. I would have missed out on that. Don't underestimate the power of presence. You never know how something as simple as showing up can start restoration in yourself and in others. Second one, speak up. Say the thing. I miss you. I need help. Can we talk? This one's hard for me too. But unspoken needs rarely get met. We crave authenticity, but we fear rejection, so we wear masks. We say we're fine when we're really not. But Ecclesiastes says, if one falls down, the other can help them up. That assumes the other person knows that you've fallen. We can't help each other up if we don't know we're down. Simon Sinek says that real friendship isn't formed when you help someone. It's formed when you ask for help. That hit me hard because honestly, I hate asking for help, and I feel like I'm inconveniencing people. My oldest son, Jonah, graduated about a year ago from PFW with an art degree in fine arts and printmaking. And so we had been working since graduation to kind of build a studio for him at home, with the crown jewel being a printing press that was being shipped from New Mexico. So this thing arrived on 2 pallets. Like there was a FedEx truck with one of those, lift things that backed up into our driveway, and he had to use a dolly to put it in the garage. And came in 2 boxes. One was the table that it sits on, and one's the press. So I opened up the box with the table. That was easy to put together. Uncovered the press. This press weighs 325 to 350 pounds. There's a solid, roll in the middle that's just steel. And so I looked at Nolan, I looked at Jonah, they both look a lot like me, and I looked at Renee, and we said, yeah, there's no way. And we had to lift that thing off the ground on top of the table. So there was my gut check moment. Who would I call right now? And in that moment, embarrassingly, I couldn't think of anyone. Not because no one existed, but because I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to feel like a burden. So eventually he called the biggest guy I know, Parker Klein. You may know him as the owner of the Brown House. And Tim Miller came over, and they helped us lift it up there. We secured it. I thought I was going to take it in through the garage in our kitchen into a room we were going to put it in, but I didn't measure correctly because when you set the press on top of the table, there's a little gearbox that is not in line with the edge of the table. So the table would have fit through, but not when I put the press on it. So we went and we measured the front door. Thankfully, that was wide enough. But we had to take the door off to get it through. We were there probably for an hour, hour and a half. Nobody mentioned being inconvenienced. We laughed. I basically learned that if I need an obscure tool, Parker has it. Asking for help built trust. It built connection. So I'm learning. Haven't mastered, I'm learning that vulnerability builds community. If you're struggling, say so. If you're grieving, speak up. If you're overwhelmed, don't pretend. This is what we need more of as a church. Not just prayer requests, but honest mutual connection. Third one is open up. Not to everyone, but to someone. Let someone see behind the curtain. Invite them in, even when the house or your heart is messy. We usually attend second service, and if you've been around a while, you'll see us sitting at a table with Bob and Kathy Hardy. Now, on the surface, that might not make a whole lot of sense. There's a pretty noticeable age gap between us, and if you're just glancing across the room, you might assume we're sitting there because we're being polite, maybe because the other tables are full. But what you wouldn't see from across the room is what's actually happening at that table. That table is sacred space for us. Because Kathy is one of the few people outside of family that Renee and I have let see behind the veil. What do I mean by that? Our oldest son, Jonah, was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when he was in the 3rd grade. And nothing could have prepared us for that news or for what it would mean in the years to come. The fears, the doubts, the helplessness. I can't tell you how many times I cried in my car or quietly at my desk at work. Watching my child struggle through middle and high school while other families around seem to be doing life effortlessly. It wears on the spirit, it makes you feel isolated, like you're the only one navigating a road with no signs and no map. We didn't know anybody else living in that reality until I met Kathy and Bob. Their grandson is also on the spectrum. And with them, something shifted. When we talk with them, we're not trying to fix anything. We're not offering advice unless it's asked for. We're just showing up. Being real, and that's made all the difference. One of my favorite authors, Anne Lamott, says, "The most powerful words in the world are me too." And I believe that with all my heart. That sense of being seen, of not being alone in it, has saved us more times than I can count. So over the last 7 or 8 years, we've shared our joys, our heartbreaks, our frustrations, and our deep worry about the future for our kids. And honestly, I know we would have fallen a whole lot harder and a whole lot more often if we hadn't had Bob and Kathy standing there quietly beside us, sometimes literally holding us up. Kathy is special. She's one of those people who just sees you. Not just the polished version, not the Sunday morning version, but the real you. And she always makes time to ask how you're really doing. Not in a passing church lobby kind of way, but with real intent, real compassion. And what I've learned, what I'm still learning is this: you have to let people see you. Not just the Instagram version, not just the we're doing fine version, but the actual you. The hurting you, the confused you, the joyful you, the I'm barely holding it together you. Because as long as we keep our struggles behind closed doors, we keep ourselves from the very community we need the most. We rob ourselves of me too. And so if I would encourage you to do one thing this morning, it would be this: open up to someone. Let them behind the curtain. Let them see the messy parts, the weary parts, the parts that need a shoulder and not a solution. Because real community doesn't happen when you show up, it happens when you show up real. Last thing, number 4, stick around. Committed friendship isn't flashy. It doesn't sparkle on the surface or come with a highlight reel. It's not about how alike you are or how easy things feel in the beginning. It's forged slowly over time through presence, patience, and perseverance. Think of my marriage to my wife, Renee. This August we'll be married 28 years. And I will tell you, I'm not an easy person to live with. I can be moody. I can be sarcastic. I've walked through seasons of depression that have made even basic connection hard. We all have people in our lives like that. And Renee, she is the kindest person you will ever meet. Truly, she's steady, she's gentle, she's gracious in ways that disarm you. And the reason our marriage has endured and deepened isn't because we always felt the same or agreed or had all things figured out. It's because she kept choosing me. She stayed even when it was hard. And in time, I learned how to keep choosing her too. That's what committed friendship looks like. Not perfect people, but persistent ones. It's the kind of bond that doesn't walk away when things get awkward or heavy or inconvenient. It says, I see the mess, and I still choose you. And here's the best news. You don't have to do it alone. Jesus is already at the center of the cord. The rope isn't strong because we are. It's strong because He is. He holds us together when we fall apart. He strengthens the bond when we're weak. He shows up. He speaks up. He opens up. He sticks around. So what kind of community are we becoming? Cotton candy, it's fun, but it can't carry you. Braided rope, it's quiet, it's unflashy, but it's the kind of strength that holds when life falls apart. Maybe today is your invitation to begin again, to show up, to speak up, to open up, and to stick around. Not perfectly, just honestly. Because two are better than one. Cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Let's be the kind of community that can hold each other. In a world full of spun sugar, let's build something that lasts. Amen.